Hey everybody, today I am going to be reviewing The Iron Claw. This was directed by Sean Durkin. I knew next to nothing about the Von Erich brothers other than just the famous name and the dynasty associated with pro wrestling. So I was going into this film, ready to be informed emotionally. But once I saw the film, I could understand why they wanted to tell this story because it's really compelling and surprisingly devastating. And I say surprising again because I didn't know the story. So it's like by the time you get into the second half of the movie, I was like, Jesus Christ, this is not what I was expecting. But yeah, I mean, obviously this is a big family portrait. So you have a big wealth of characters here, and each one is going to play an important role in, guiding our protagonist to his self-actualization. Our protagonist here is played by Zac Efron, and he's Kevin Von Erich, who is the last surviving brother of the family, and he is the one who is, yes, he's needing to carve his own path and find a sense of identity that maybe his other brothers could not. And I see him just in the story as somebody who's meant to, carry a lot of burdens emotionally so far as his family is concerned, and he's also meant to kind of carry on the torch of the family in a symbolic sense. And I mean this not from a factual point of view, from a historical point of view, I mean it more from just how the story is structured and the angle that they're trying to find emotionally into this family. And I think for the most part, this movie did a solid job at what it set out to do. Now, is it a brilliant film? No. And I don't think it's going to knock down the Academy Awards or anything like that, but I enjoyed it a lot for what it was. There were so many times throughout the movie I found myself going, oh, I wish this had more emotion here. I wish this were tighter. I wish they could have added a scene here. I wish that, so many things that I wanted to fix. And yet overall, when I look at the movie, I think it's quite beautifully made, and I think it understands maybe ambiance really well, textures very well. It knows what to do with the world aesthetically in order to bring it to life, and it helps warm the audience to it quite easily. And it takes place in the 1970s, so there is a very zeitgeisty sort of feel. It's like there's like a golden hue of nostalgia around the entire film, and it reminds me of, like Texas summer sunsets and days out by the lake with beer, all that kind of stuff. Teenage girls running around in those little white short shorts that they wore in the 1970s. Just those little touches like that really, brought the film to life for me. And there are key scenes in the film that capture a crucial sense of humanity, and I think without them, the film would lose a lot. But what I love about them is that they don't rely on a lot of gimmicks like we're used to. There's nothing really pompous about it. For instance, I really liked the first date scene between Kevin and his future wife, because that's when you finally start to get a sense of our main character, because you really don't up until that point. And of course, it's framed through the woman who is interested in him. So then is going to come that spark, and we get to see what drives him a little bit more. But I found myself throughout the movie at times thinking, okay, how are we going to balance out all of these elements? How are we going to balance more the family dynamic with the family tragedy, as well as bringing in the wrestling angle, all this stuff? Initially, in the first half of the film, I struggled to find my way in maybe emotionally from a viewer's perspective. And I mentioned that there's a lot of great textures in the movie, but they're kind of picky about them. It's like some scenes have them in abundance and others are really, really starving for it. I think the first half just really needed a richer portrayal of the family dynamic, so that when we get to the second half of the film, where it's really going to take a dark turn, a lot of these themes and these emotions are going to feel a lot more resonant. They're going to feel a lot more earned. And in a way, that's actually really good for our main character, because I struggled to get a sense of what was really driving him as a character. But that starts to come into focus once you see the rest of the movie, because a lot of these other characters and a lot of these other situations are going to kind of fill in the blanks for him. He's probably the brother you can rely on the most, but he's maybe not the most edgy or the most charismatic, maybe not the most aggressive, and definitely not the most pronounced so far as personality is concerned. But it doesn't matter. He's noble. He has heart. And he's relatable to us because he carries all of those, instinctual family values. See, the things that he loves the most are, becoming a champion, but he also wants to be a family man. Being a brother is very, very important to him. Maybe the most important thing of all, at least so far as the movie is concerned. And you can feel that he carries this burden. It's like he carries that hardened World War II era, paternal philosophy that his father instilled in him. Prowess, hard work, stoicism, and yet this particular character has a vulnerability to him that is really, a welcome change, I guess. That's one of the reasons I loved Zac Efron in this film. I think that he's a really great actor and somebody who's maybe underrated so far as his talents are concerned. But I think that he brings, yes, he's always had that boyish quality, especially with those blue eyes and everything. But yeah, there's something where he can bring, like I said, a vulnerability, an innocence here, and that boyish emotional center, but always in a restrained sort of way. It's like you can always feel him trying to pull it back because he feels he has a certain responsibility. And I just love the way that he made all of that feel very present for us as audience. And the way that he transformed physically for the role, and not just him, but other people in the film as well, it was just really amazing to watch, but also it's just kind of funny. There's just an inherent humor in these people where you have these boys, like they're walking around their house and they're like carrying like a box of cereal and they're in their tidy whities. They have their long hair. It's like the band members from Iron Maiden, but like on steroids. And there's just something, it's really hard to get beyond that image. And the effect so far is Efron. It's like his skin, it looks like burnt rubber. It's just, it has like this leathery kind of tough quality to it, something that's like overly tanned or whatever. And it's just, there's like a lot of bravura associated with that body type and everything, and with this particular vocation of being a wrestler. And yet you look at the man himself and he's, you know, a lot more withdrawn than that. I do wish that they had taken a little more advantage of the performance aspect of wrestling and just like the camp factor and the irony of like the pageantry of it, even though it's meant to be like this very like masculine bravado sort of thing. It's yeah, machismo as pageantry. And the irony there is that a lot of that starts to become effeminate, I think, without even realizing it. So yeah, all of that I think is funny. And I think it would have been fun to kind of explore that a little bit, you know, from a bird's eye perspective. And I would have liked to see just more like the performance aspect, the idea of like illusions and everything play into the film a little bit more. I would have liked to see more how each brother starts to discover his own character and how he like navigates his career that way. Each brother has to carve his own path to success, of course, and they do have a scene or a couple scenes, I think, where they do kind of show that or emphasize that a little bit, where it's like Kevin's in front of cameras and he's trying to like read a script. He's trying to, you know, be badass with the trash talking, and he's so bad at it. He has like no screen presence at all, and his brothers are laughing at him like, look, I'll do it. I'm good at this. That's a really important scene because it again shows that our main character doesn't have the same kind of charisma, at least at the beginning. He doesn't have that same confidence, and he's going to have to build to it. Though I do think it's really important to, you know, not only show the campiness of wrestling, but also show, you know, the seriousness of it, because to these people it's a very serious thing, and to a lot of people it's a serious thing. And I think it's important for the filmmaker to treat it as such, and I think that he does here. Though I don't think that the symbol of wrestling, so far as it applies to the family, I don't think it's always sinking in the way that I wanted to. I think that, yeah, the film just needed to have a stronger first act. It needed to have a lot less montages. I wanted to see a lot more scenes play out between the brothers, like actual scenarios where we get to see them fighting. We get to see them, you know, struggle with conflict. And I also really wanted to see the father's effect on the boys in a way that felt a lot less like bullet points as we're getting here, especially how that's going to affect the way that they start to come into their own, and so far as how they run the business and all of that. This is essentially like watching like Selena with Abraham Quintanilla or something like that. It's like very like stage parent sort of thing. There is a great line, and it's in the trailer, but it's at the beginning of the movie where they're all like sitting at the breakfast table, and the dad, he blatantly ranks his children in order from how much he likes them. And it's just a really funny, outrageous moment, but it's also a very sad one. And it's like, I wanted so much more of that. It felt a little bit too careful. I think it was important for it to be a little bit more shameless and really get in there. Show us who these kids are. And I mean, don't just show them snorting cocaine as a measure of self-destruction. Actually help us understand their self-destruction. What leads them to where they go? Because as the film goes on, the moral compass that is held intact by the father is really going to get jostled violently. And then suddenly, you know, our characters are going to start questioning all of these morals in the face of tragedy. So I just want the foundation, the groundwork to be laid out so that we feel more of that emotional pull again in the second half of the film. An example would be like the Jeremy Allen White character in the film. I struggled with him maybe the most because I think the movie wanted him to be one of the more interesting ones, and they wanted to give him that final emotional, like gut punch climactic moment, I think at the end of the film, and it just wasn't, it worked, but not quite in the way that I wanted it to. I really wanted to feel that emotional rush. We could never find any real dimension with him, and his character kind of represents a lot of the weaknesses I have with the movie, because once we get into that third act, it feels like we are scrambling to give him a proper arc that feels, you know, really defined. I think if we just had better editing, maybe some more scenes, a longer movie, really, I think I would have felt this a lot more. Not that I didn't, because, you know, again, it's a very powerful scene. It's just that, again, I wanted it to have the impact that the actual story provides for us. There was something really refreshing about this movie in the sense that it just didn't feel pretentious. It didn't feel boastful like a lot of the movies I've seen lately. It didn't feel like it was trying to make some overbearing point on toxic masculinity, even though it really could have stressed that strongly. And it definitely has influences, but it's not leaning too much into them. It's not like it's going for some like obvious Scorsese type of framework for the family narrative where we're playing up the quirkiness just for the sake of a laugh and all of that. But no, I think there's actual dignity in this material. It's really important for a film like this to believe in what it's selling, and I think this film absolutely does, and that's part of why it works. And hence why I think it's a really good movie to watch for Christmas. I totally see why this is coming out right before Christmas, because it reminds family of what's important, family values, and despite the complexities of those relationships. Yeah, I don't know if I would pay like a full price for this, but maybe like a matinee movie or like watch it streaming with the family. I like this. And that is my review. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to plug my website. As always, it is deepfocuslens.com. I'm an artist. I do commission portraits and I sell prints of my work. If that's something that you're interested in, you can always go to the website below. And if you have a question about a commission or a print, you can always email me. My email is in the description box below as well. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to my patrons who are fantastic. Guys, thank you so much for your support. Welcome to all the new members. If you are interested in supporting, the link for that is below, as well as the rest of my social media information. You can watch more videos here, and you can subscribe if you'd like. Catch you next time.